Most people think they only have two choices when dealing with a toxic person: fight back or fold, argue and wrestle in the mud, or go quiet and let them walk all over you. But here's the thing, neither of those works. And if you've tried both, you already know that. There is a third option, and it's the exact strategy highly emotionally intelligent people use to disarm toxic behavior, not by attacking and not by surrendering, but by doing something most people never even consider. That's what this video is about. But before we get into the strategies, you need to understand something. Toxic people don't come with warning signs. They don't show up wearing a neon sign that says, "I will drain the life out of you." They look like charming coworkers, concerned family members, the friend who just cares about you. Sometimes they look like the victim in every story they tell. And that's what makes them so exhausting to deal with. It's that invisible drain. You finish a conversation with them, and something feels off. You can't quite name it, but you're suddenly second-guessing your own memory, replaying the conversation, wondering, wait, did I overreact? Was I too sensitive? Am I the problem here? That confusion, that's not accidental. That's the mechanism. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 5 psychological strategies that smart, emotionally grounded people use to permanently disarm manipulators. But I need you to pay close attention to strategy number 5, toward the end of this video. It is a completely counterintuitive technique that flips the power dynamic in seconds. And it is the one thing toxic people absolutely cannot stand. We'll get there. But first, you need to understand why everything you're currently doing is making things worse. The real issue isn't that toxic people exist. They always have, and they always will. The real issue is how smart, empathetic people try to handle them. We make one fatal mistake over and over again. We treat toxic people like rational human beings who simply have a misunderstanding. Like, if we just explain ourselves clearly enough, patiently enough, kindly enough, they'll finally get it. They won't. And that assumption, that's the trap. Here is a hard truth you need to hear. Empathy without boundaries is self-destruction. You think that if you find just the right words, if you stay calm enough, patient enough, understanding enough, they'll finally see your perspective and change. You believe in the goodness of people. That's not a flaw. But with toxic people, that belief becomes the weapon they use against you. Research on manipulative personality patterns is consistent on this. Toxic people know exactly what they're doing. They aren't confused. They aren't looking for understanding. They are looking for control. And every time you offer more patience, more explanation, more emotional availability, you are handing them exactly what they need to keep you stuck. And suddenly, what started as kindness becomes the reason you can't sleep at night. Now here's the worst mistake smart people make. And it's going to sting a little. Over-explaining. When you give them a 5-minute breakdown of why your feelings are hurt, you think you're setting a boundary. You think you're being mature, communicating, advocating for yourself. But psychologically, explaining is just asking for permission. Every reason you give them is ammunition. Every justification you offer becomes something they can twist, dismiss, or use to redirect the blame back onto you. And you walk away feeling like you lost an argument you never should have entered. And then comes the guilt trip. The moment you finally push back, the moment you stop apologizing, stop bending, they hit you with it. Wow, you're so sensitive. Or, I guess I'm just a terrible person then. Or the classic, I was just joking, you can't take a joke. And suddenly, you're back on defense, explaining yourself again, reassuring them, apologizing, even though you have nothing to apologize for. That's the cycle. And here's the truth. If you keep trying to reason with someone who is committed to misunderstanding you, you will lose your mind. Here is what smart people do instead. Strategy 1. Cut emotional access. Shift from cutting contact to cutting emotional access. Because here's something people don't want to admit. Blocking someone's number is almost meaningless if they still live rent-free in your head. You can remove them from your phone and still spend 2 hours replaying arguments in the shower. Still check their Instagram through a secondary account. Still vent about them to every mutual friend who will listen, keeping them alive in your world, even when they're technically gone from it. Smart people understand something different. The real severance is internal. That means you stop rehearsing what you should have said. You stop imagining the confrontation where you finally win. You stop monitoring their life for signs that they regret what they did to you. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. You haven't truly cut off a toxic person until you stop rehearsing conversations with them in your mind. That's when the real detachment begins. Strategy 2. The unexplained boundary. Toxic people view your explanations as negotiations. The moment you explain why something bothers you, you've opened a debate. And debate is where they live. That's their home court. They will out-argue you, out-emotionalize you, and outlast you every single time. So, stop explaining, stop justifying. State your boundaries as facts, not requests. Instead of, I feel really hurt when you speak to me that way, because it makes me feel small, and I just want you to understand where I'm coming from. You say, I'm not discussing this. That's it. Loud boundaries come from pain. Silent, brief boundaries come from power. No is a complete sentence. It doesn't need a paragraph attached to it. Now, we're about to go into the most psychologically demanding strategy on this list. It requires you to completely suppress your natural human instincts. It is not easy. And honestly, most people fail at it because their ego gets in the way. But if you are mentally disciplined enough to pull this off, you become literally untouchable to manipulators. Let's break it down. Strategy 3. The gray rock method. Toxic people don't feed on your logic. They don't feed on your arguments or your calm reasoning. They feed on your emotional reaction. When you get angry, they win. When you cry, they win. When you raise your voice, walk out dramatically, send the long text at midnight, they win. Because now they have content, drama, something to twist and use and show to other people. So, here's the move. Become as boring and unreactive as a gray rock. Neutral tone, short answers. Okay. Interesting. Nothing emotionally rich enough to grab onto. You don't win against a toxic person by outsmarting them. You win by becoming so incredibly boring that they starve from the complete absence of drama and move on to a different target. This is counterintuitive because your brain is screaming at you to defend yourself, to correct the record, to make them understand. Don't. A gray rock doesn't argue. It just sits there, solid, unmovable, and completely uninteresting. Strategy 4. Reframe what a boundary actually is. Most people have this completely backwards. They think a boundary is something you enforce on another person. You are not allowed to speak to me that way. You cannot treat me like this. But that's not a boundary. That's an attempt to control someone else's behavior. And here's the problem. You can't control another person. Especially not a toxic one. A real boundary is about what you will do, not what they can't do. It's not, you're not allowed to yell at me. It's, if you raise your voice at me, I will stand up and leave the room. No threat, no drama, just a clear statement of your own action. You stop trying to change them. You take 100% ownership of your own response. And that shift, from trying to control them to controlling yourself, that is where real power lives. Because you can always follow through on your own behavior. You can never force someone else to change theirs. At this point, you know how to cut emotional access. You know how to set unexplained iron-solid boundaries. You know how to become a gray rock. You might feel like you have everything you need, but here's a warning. All of this, every single strategy we just covered, will completely backfire if you don't know how to handle what happens next. Because when a toxic person realizes they are losing control over you, they escalate, they push harder, they get louder, messier, more manipulative. Here is strategy number 5, the ultimate non-negotiable final step. The one thing toxic people absolutely hate the most. Strategy 5, weaponize silence and deliberate delay. Toxic people thrive on urgency. They need your immediate reaction. They bait you with an insult, a passive-aggressive comment, a provocative text, because they need you to snap, react, engage, give them something to work with. The antidote is this. Delay everything. Take 24 hours to reply to their message. Not because you are playing games, but because you are choosing not to operate on their timeline. And when they insult you to your face, don't defend yourself. Don't explain. Don't get flustered. Just look at them. Hold the silence for 3 full seconds. Then calmly change the subject, as if what they said barely registered. Watch what happens. Silence confuses people who expect chaos. When you don't react, they have nothing to grab onto, nothing to twist, nothing to escalate with. You are leaving them to hold the full, awkward weight of their own behavior, alone, in the silence they can't stand. That is power. Quiet, deliberate, unshakable power. Eventually, if you start using these strategies consistently, the toxic person is going to notice something has changed, and they're going to say it. You've changed. You're so cold now. You used to be so much more open. When you hear that, smile. Because in toxic translation, you've changed simply means you stopped letting me walk all over you. That's not coldness, that's clarity. And the fact that they notice it, that discomfort they feel, that's confirmation that every strategy in this video is working exactly as it should. Your peace is not up for negotiation. You don't have to fight toxic people to win. You don't have to explain yourself, prove yourself, or earn your right to boundaries. You just have to stop participating in a game that was rigged against you from the start. If this video gave you even one thing to take with you today, hit the like button. Subscribe if you want more deep dives into human psychology. and drop a comment below. Tell me, which of these 5 strategies hit the hardest for you? I read them all. Stay strong, stay unbothered. I'll see you in the next one.